All right, so continuing on, item number 12, post-wildfire flooding update.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Ed Shank, Stormwater Manager. We have our pretty typical team here today to give our monthly update on the post-wildfire flooding scene. So here is our agenda, if you will, for this presentation. We'll give some updates for the Schultz Creek area, that's Pipeline West, as well as Spruce Wash updates, a brief mention of the spring flood mitigation planning that was being undergone right now, and then open it up for discussion and questions. Just a little bit of background. You saw the slide, I believe, last month, and just added a little bit of detail to it. Some of this work that we're doing here in Flagstaff is occurring very quickly. It's some of the best work in the nation, and that's not just a slogan. Just as an example, in 2022, the city did receive the Innovate City Works Excellent Departmental Practice. That's a nationwide award presented in Salt Lake City for post-fire response and management. There's also been quite a bit of new research that's come out of both the museum and pipeline fire by a number of different researchers, including in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Frontiers in Neuroscience, Journal of Forestry, and others. And then multiple workshops and presentations at both the national and international level. And as you well know, in the last 3 years, Flagstaff has been visited by the Chief of the U.S. Forest Service, congressional representation, Army Corps of Engineers leadership, and other high-ranking federal staff and delegations. So what we're showing here today and what we show every month, this really is cutting-edge work that's being noticed on the nationwide level. Again, this overall map of what we are working with, what we're dealing with here in the community. Just going to move through it quickly. You're very well aware of this. We have the 2019 museum fire in Dry Lake Hills, which impacts the Grandview and Sunnyside neighborhood within the city, as well as Mount Eldon Estates in the county. We also have the tunnel fire that really impacted the county residents in the Timberline area, Doney Park, Haywire fire as well, that was further out in federal lands, and obviously the 2022 pipeline fire that impacted both the city through Stavana, Coconino Estates, Coyote Springs, and downtown Southside, as well as the east side impacts to the county residents. Just give you some updates on the Spruce Wash watershed. Again, some of this you've seen before. So the new hydrology modeling does indicate that we still have an elevated flood risk. Even with some of the watershed recovery, there is still a very large flood risk for that Paradise, Grandview, and Sunnyside neighborhood. Those bond projects at $26 million are moving quickly through design as we speak. And we have that technical advisory committee that continues to meet weekly and focus groups on particular projects that meet as needed. The geotechnical and survey work are being performed as weather allows. Obviously, we have some issue with that, with the amount of snow that we have, but we are doing the best we can. And there has been a construction manager at risk, a CMAR, that has been selected, and that is ongoing in negotiations with staff. We expect that award coming to council soon, so there'll be more information on that shortly. With that, I believe Scott's going to come up and talk a little bit more in detail with the projects.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Scott Overton, Public Works Director. I'm covering for Mac McNamara, one of our capital improvement engineers this evening, who is out ill. We hope him a speedy recovery and back to work soon. As you know, we have gone through the suite of projects with you at our last meeting, and there are a total of 7 of them. And this map and the listing is the projects that our TAC group is continuing to design and work towards delivery from the $26 million of resource post-bond. Real importantly, and I think this was a highlighted slide that is new material that MAC was ready to present this evening. A CMAR, construction manager at risk, that's the model of delivery we're utilizing to deliver all $26 million of the project work, has been selected through a qualifications-based process. We like to highlight this. This isn't always low bid. Remember, this is a different type of process that allows us to work with what we feel is the most and highly competent team that could bring the best vision and resources to this effort. We have selected one, and we are working through the negotiations process. And as Ed mentioned, you will see a design services contract in the coming month once those negotiations are complete. We do have 3 separate design professional groups with us and consultants for the suite of projects. You're familiar with all of them. They include SWI Ardura, Peak Engineering, and J.E. Fuller. Those folks are working on the individual designs for those suites of projects. As mentioned, a survey in geotech was underway, then we got bombarded with some snow, and they continue to work, but frankly, they have been slowed. And we continue to do what we can to work through LIDAR and some other means so that they can continue to design, but the actual physical survey work on the ground is somewhat delayed, but with the warmer temps that we do expect in March, we think we're going to make some progress pretty quickly, and those teams will be ready as soon as they can get into the field for good conditions. It is important to note, and we wanted to highlight that the CMAR, the construction manager at risk, will likely retain a public relations firm. In the past, you've seen the city utilize Beta PR. We don't know which firm they will choose, but it will include very similar messaging as you've seen in the past, but it will now be more construction focused and more focused on what the impacts to residents will be as we start to move into longer term mitigations. And again, the CMAR will work with that sub-consultant in coordination effort with our TAC. And as soon as we know whom that firm is, we will make sure to introduce them to you, likely next month. Wanted to briefly hit on Parkway Basin. This project, you will receive a very, very detailed briefing next Monday evening at your joint city county board of supervisors meeting. This is one that Lucinda Andriani will be presenting on behalf of the county and the flood control district next Monday. So not a lot of detail here. I think that the highlights really are that it is a county project. It is still in their procurement process. They are not in a position where they can disclose a whole lot about it yet, but they will be there by next Monday. Final scoping's underway. The final plan and construction approach will be out soon. There is an intergovernmental agreement that's in development at this time so that when all of it is lined up, we will be a participant. As recall, it is on city property. It is funded, and this funding that we secured NRCS through the county must be expended by June of 23. And by expended, we mean completed, the project. So we're on a fast track to work with the county and make sure that this gets delivered by June of 23. And of course, it does start or remain on the city parcel. And weather is now kind of coming into question for a lot of these projects as we do anticipate muddy and wet spring conditions. So we're working hard to not let that be a deterrent. That is all I have for Schultz Creek, and on behalf of MAC, we hope that's a good quick update on this one. And again, next Monday, you'll get a lot more on Park Basin. Ed, you're gonna cover Schultz Creek.
Okay, so we're moving over to the west side, Schultz Creek and the 2022 pipeline fire. So again, we're looking at a series of projects in the Schultz Creek area as well. The detention basins obviously were complete this last fall and are functioning. We have 2 projects between those basins and Highway 180. We'll go into those details. The Highway 180 crossing, which we do have our team from SWI Ardura here to go into some details there and some new updates. And then a very short update on Francis Short Pond as we go out of Schultz Creek and down into the Rio de Flag. So we have those 2 projects between the basins and Highway 180. One is a channel improvement or a channel stabilization. This would be funded through the Emergency Watershed Protection, EWP funding. We are still waiting for the state to get their appropriation from the federal fund for that. So we are in constant communication with the state NRCS representation of when we will get that. The city match for this project will be funded through that new stormwater rate or the Department of Forestry and Fire Management if we are able to get their cash match on it. The other project is a county project on Eldon Lookout Road. This is moving through designs at 60% design. This is to provide a larger culvert on Eldon Lookout Road. We should mention that both of these projects are designed to reduce sediment and downstream debris impacts in Coconino Estates, the downtown, and the south side neighborhoods. So these are, while we haven't talked about them much, these are rather important projects for the whole drainage system to reduce impacts downstream. Going into a little more detail on the Eldon Lookout Road, again, this is a county project. It's being delivered by County Public Works, currently at 60% design. It's designed to convey the 2-inch and 45-minute post-fire storm under Eldon Lookout Road. Currently, it goes over the road. It's been scouring out the road and scouring out the downstream private property. So by creating this, they will be able to reduce scour and sediment transport to the Coyote Springs neighborhood, Coconino Estates, and then down through the rest of the city. And we are working with them, the city's working with the county on getting this designed as quickly as possible. And with that, we'll move over to the Schultz Creek at Highway 180. I'd love to talk about it, but there's people way more competent at it than I am. So we will have some representation from our designer go into some details. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, my name's Stephen Irwin with SWI Ardura. See some new faces since the last time I presented. We're working on this box culvert project right now. Does the mouse work? All right. So there's a box culvert under Highway 180 right now. Intercepts, or it takes flows from Schultz Creek, runs down 180, comes out through the Stavana neighborhood into the Rio de Flag. What our project does is we're designing a new sediment basin at the inlet, and then we will route those flows into a new box culvert, which will go under Highway 180 through the church, Lutheran Church parking lot, direct route to Rio de Flag. We had submitted 30% plans. ADOT, county, and the city have all given us comments on those plans, so we can move forward with our 60% design. As with spruce wash projects, we are kind of held up with this snow, getting our detailed topo survey. But in the meantime, we've been working on legal descriptions to start that property acquisition. We've met with the Lutheran Church. I'd say they've been pretty positive meetings. Been coordinating with the utility companies. There are some dry utilities, gas, electric. There's some overhead electric there. Looks like some phone pedestals that we need to coordinate, and a water line that needs to be relocated. So we're working on those. And really, as far as schedule, we're just pushing as hard as we can, going as far as we can, hoping this snow will melt and we can finish our topo survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just so I'm a visual, the building at the bottom there on the right, is that the, who occupies that
That's
building?
ACE.
ACE?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so the basin is that patch of forest trees where the flooding went through before it crossed over?
Yes, so this outline here, the sediment basin, is that area before it snowed. You could see all the mud and debris. That's this area here. And what we're doing there is, hopefully those detention and sediment basins at the Y, Eldon and Schultz Y, hopefully those will take most of the sediment. But we identified this as another, one last shot to try to trap some of that mud and debris, keeping it from getting downstream into the city. Also trying to keep this from plugging, because if this culvert plugs, you still run into the same issues of overtopping. So that's what this sediment basin
So
is.
this basin comes up against private property lines?
This is on Museum of Northern Arizona property.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Do you have a rough idea of when this project will be completed?
I do not. I'll have to rely on Ed for that.
That's a great question, and it's one we get every time. Yeah, we are working as fast as we can. We're really hoping to get through 60%, 90% design pretty quickly. We have set up a focus group on this that includes the county, ADOT, a number of different engineers, both internally as well as through the consultants, and then obviously the relevant city partners, or city staff. So we're moving quickly, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but I mean, the snowpack really does slow us down in terms of getting the topo, moving with that. But we are moving concurrently with real estate, now that we have the legal descriptions. We are hoping to meet with the Lutheran Church again very shortly, as well as Museum of Northern Arizona, so the two private property owners that are most impacted. And we have set up meetings with the church and hoping to set up a meeting with M&A in the near future. We have been talking with them today, actually, to move that. So we are, I mean, a lot of this is moving real time. We are moving as quick as we can. Same period, we're working through procurement, so we are putting together the draft letters that we need to send through procurement and legal for the SOQs, so Statement of Qualifications for a CMAR. So lots of irons in the fire. To give you a real answer, we're not quite there yet, but we are trying to push this as fast as we can, including looking at design elements that can be built off-site. So essentially bringing in modular components instead of building on site so we can move it quicker. That's not really answering your question, but it's the
No,
best we
not
can do.
really. Well, I mean, I'm totally convinced you're working very diligently on this. There's no doubt about it. That's obvious. But I'm just kind of curious. Are you thinking, maybe this summer, or will this go into next year, or what? You must have what in engineering we called swag, scientific wild ass guess.
I wish we did, but there's so many variables that go into it. I mean, just how long the snowpack goes, how long the procurement process takes, if there's any snags with our partners, since, it's not just city property here. We are talking county and ADOT as well. I mean, so far we're working great all together. Everything's going very swimmingly, but there's so many unknowns. I'd hate to give you any, even if swag on it. I mean, our hope is to push this forward as fast as possible, and to give you anything beyond that is a little tough just because there are so many unknowns. I mean, it'd be fantastic if we can do it this summer. That would be awesome. I'd have a huge party, but I don't want to even give you a swag on that just because there are so many unknowns.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes, I was going to ask you, with the church being right there and you have to go right through their parking lot, what are they going to do? I mean, I'm just kind of curious.
No,
where do you
that's-
put people? Because if I remember, there's not a whole lot of space anywhere like blank space that's open. So anyway, curious.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's something we're definitely going to have to work with the church with, because it's not just the church. They have their school there as well, and they do have summer programs. So the hope is, and I'm going to probably butcher the terms here, so Stephen, you can correct me here. The hope with doing, these modular type of improvements is that we will not have a huge footprint. So we do not have to open it up. We're going to have people down in there doing precast concrete, where we can actually have a smaller trench footprint so that they can still be utilizing the majority of their parking lot and the entirety of the school while we're doing that work. And Stephen, feel free to, if they have anything to add to that. I don't learn the right terminology on some of that, but.
No, I think the only thing I would add, it's different with design, but we have already done a geotechnical investigation. Our sub-consultant brought in a drill rig to get soil samples. We had to coordinate with school drop-off and pickup. I see that same approach during construction. It'll be a little more challenging, but we're really able to keep our footprint as far along this property line as we can and give as much circulation through this parking lot, but it will certainly be an inconvenience.
I don't see any other questions or comments. Thank you.
All right, and yeah, hopefully next month we'll have more on the, not hopefully, we will have more details as we move forward through this. To keep the theme of snow, Francis Short Pond, the dredging that is on hold due to the snowpack and the expected spring runoff. We do have a large snow water equivalent up on the peaks, which means that we do expect an extended spring runoff coming through here, which would definitely make it difficult to do a dredge operation in an inline basin such as Francis Short. So we will assess in the coming months and be back with you with more details as we go through. Quick update on neighborhood mitigations. This was going to be presented by Patrick O'Connor, our Water Services Operations Section Director. Unfortunately, he was called away on a family medical issue. We do have to have in April an update on the short-term mitigations. So this would be the sandbags, the barrier, those engineering assessments, the door-to-door assessments, that type of work. We will have that update in April. I know we have had some residents' questions on that, so we did want to address that. We are assessing the new flood risk models for both Schultz and Spruce Wash. So both washes have new flood risk models that we are assessing right now. And we are also looking at the new flood alert thresholds as both the watershed and Spruce Wash improves slightly. And also as we have those very large basins in Schultz Creek, we are looking at what those new rave alert thresholds should be, and we may or likely will adjust those due to the new data that we have. So this mitigation is funded by that new stormwater rate adjustment that includes funding for sandbags, barrier purchase, the engineering assessments, the door-to-door assistance, or door-to-door assessments, as well as the individual assistance for elderly and disabled. As a reminder, the call center is open, never has shut down. That is 928-213-2102 during business hours. So people can call for more information. Again, we probably will not have a whole lot more information until April as we start to ramp up for the monsoon season. And with that, that is all we have to prepare, or well, I can't speak, all we have prepared. Definitely open for questions. We have a number of folks here besides myself that can take questions and comments. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? And then we have some online public commenters. I have one question, and it's about the Spruce Wash projects. Is the number 2 that you showed on the map, the triangle, is that still a lower priority and you're thinking about doing it if needed after the other projects?
Good question, Mayor. The number 2 project is the Wedge Detention Basin. And this project at one point was, in concept, the entire parcel or the entire wedge. We have revisited that. At one point, we were hoping to eliminate it, but we are likely going to utilize a portion of the parcel. It's coming out to about half of it towards the eastern side or the Safeway side of the parcel. And it will work well and coordinate with the parkway basins. It will likely not get delivered right away, but it is a project that the engineering team is looking at and modeling to how large it needs to be to create the impact it needs to create through the entire system. So I think you will see a project on this site, but it will not be the same scope and scale as we had originally thought it might be.
Thank you. So Stacy, can we take the online commenters?
Mayor and Council, I have Stephen Purr. Stephen, you can go ahead and address Mayor and Council.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Daggett, Vice Mayor Aslan, and the members of the City Council. Couple of quick questions. Number one, in the past 30 days or so, Spruce Wash was given a notice for a public meeting, and the people of Pipeline West would like one also. So we'd like to have a public meeting, so that's a request. Number two, the people in Spruce Wash also had an update on their model in the past 30 plus days. We've had no update in our model, and I'm kind of befuddled by that. And it seems like we're not going to get one until April. And I think my neighbors in Coconino Estates deserve one a little sooner. And if I look back in last June, after the fire, we had a model within a month. After the next month, we knew the deficiencies in that model, number of walls that were in place that weren't going to allow the water to flow through Coconino Estates, but to flood my street in West Savannah. A couple months later, we also had, me and my neighbors built another wall. So we're trying to do what we can at our expense, and we are now 5 to 7 months down the road, and we don't have a model that's been updated yet. And I think that I'd like to know when we're going to get one. And I think people, especially in Coconino Estates, who have come before you, would certainly like to know when they're going to get updated again. So, thirdly, the culvert in 180. I understand the design is going forward. I heard what was just mentioned by Ed. I was wondering, when does he think he's going to complete the negotiations with the church and with the Northern Museum? When's that going to be completed as we move forward? Those are my comments for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Staff, would you like to respond to those before we go to the next?
What's that? Oh, yeah, yes, okay, sorry. So for the modeling, yeah, we do have that modeled, but we need to make sure that what we share is accurate and precise. So that does go through multiple iterations. So Joe Lovrich with J.A. Fuller, we're still working with J.A. Fuller on making sure that the model that we prepare and that we show is the most up to date. So I understand the frustration on that, but I mean, it does go through the different iterations. What we presented, or what we were given, so I should say, immediately after the Schultz Basins did have some issues that were still being resolved. We will go back to J.A. Fuller and see when we can get a final model for Schultz Creek, the Coconino Estates area. And that will, more to come. Hopefully next month we can have a better preparation for that. Definitely understand the need for community meetings, both Schultz Creek and Spruce Wash. So those are coming up. Definitely we don't have those on the book yet, but we are working through of when those will be planned. What was the third question?
When will negotiations be finished?
Negotiations, I would leave that up to our real estate group. So we will get you an answer from our real estate group on that.
Thank you. And the public meetings, do you anticipate the public meeting for the Schultz Wash being similar to the one that was just held for Spruce Wash? Where you have maps and people can come take a look and...
Yeah, it'd be very similar. So we'll definitely have it as a public meeting, hopefully virtual, or not virtual, so hopefully hybrid. We'll have a virtual option as well as an in-person. We'll definitely have maps at that time, so we'll have detailed maps for the neighborhood, as well as engineering resources, so people there to answer questions. So yeah, we do hope to have a very similar level of service between the two impacted watersheds.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Ed, I was just curious, what conversations have been had with the museum? How I understand it, in that area, there was some sensitive Native American sites there. So is that been discussed and mitigated so far?
Not so far. So we do have Mark Rivas with our Heritage Preservation Office here within the city, who has been notified of this potential project or of the 30% designs. I believe he was brought in this week. Our real estate office with our Heritage Preservation Office will be assessing that. So there will be that component. For the museum, we're still setting up a date for the conversation about this project. We have been talking with them about the EWP, the potential EWP channel stabilization project that goes through another one of their parcels. So we've been in contact with them since the fall on that project, and the county has as well for Eldon Lookout Road, because that touches part of their parcel as well. So we will continue to work on that, and obviously that's something that's going to ramp up pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that was our last public comment. So any additional questions or comments from council? That was great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Stay warm.
All right, moving down to item number 13. Do we have any public participation for items not on the agenda?
Not tonight, Mayor.